Welcome to the Big Picture Manatee, everyone. We're back again for a new episode. And again, just a reminder to the audience, our mission is as nonpartisan space here. We're also here to listen, inform, engage, and educate the public on issues that impact Manatee County. And we always like to mention that we're expressing our own views and not those of the Big Picture Manatee as a whole. So hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Corrier with about 30 years plus in local government and now a 2 or 3 years as a consultant in the private sector.
And I am Reggie Bellamy, a former county commissioner, proud graduate of the mighty Bethune-Cookman College. And I'm excited about this opportunity to talk about parks and recs.
Hey, everybody. I'm Misty Servia. I'm also a former county commissioner, served with Reggie, and I am a certified land use planner with about 30 years of experience in both the public and the private sectors. I'm so happy to see you guys again.
Good to see you guys too. So we've been talking, we started off last week with the budget and this new budget that the county is now started to review. And we want to remind everybody that it's a $2 billion budget, first time ever, $2.5 billion 5-year capital improvement plan. It's growing. 17.5% increase over last year's tax base. And, you know, just to put that into perspective for the audience, it used to be when we were all in our roles with the county, somewhere between 5 and 7% each year. Obviously, that's due to a growth in the population, 10,000 new people in Manatee County, effective right now this year, and another growing 10,000 projected for next year, to cap up at about 440,000. So there's a lot impacting this budget. And today, as we said, we want to talk about some of the things that people expect to see here, and parks, leisure, preserves.
Parks, leisures, and reserves. When I think about that, obviously as a former commissioner, I think about some of the things that took place where we had the opportunity to bring forth the Lincoln Aquatic Center. But more importantly, when each time we talk about these different components of the budget, my focus would be, you know, how's this hitting home? And when we're talking about, you know, parks or sports and leisure, shall I say, how it's hitting home is, you know, when you have the opportunity to exercise and, you know, really impact that quality of life, you know, through recreation, where people can get out and have some fun. In Manatee County, we have a lot of, you know, great parks and beautiful walking areas within our county. So my excitement about this conversation is obviously will lead back, you know, to the parks, you know, in Manatee County, but more specifically in District 2. Excited about the things that are taking place at the Eddie Shannon Park, but more importantly, you know, the changes in the Clemens Park. And I'm sure Misty's going to talk a little bit about, you know, her advocating for the things to move forward with the John Marble Park.
Yeah, I agree. You know, parks are essential infrastructure, and I think sometimes it's hard to remember that. They're as important as roads, water, sewer, law enforcement. And why? Because it affects our quality of life. I think maybe to the largest percentage, right? People love to get outside, use those trails. Trails are the favorite thing, I think, in any community now. And you know, we need to help accomplish that, because as development pressures are so strong and we have 10,000 people moving here a year, it's really hard. I think it's impossible to stay ahead of that, but we have to catch up as much as we can and provide those open spaces for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, and you know, obviously the most crucial area for tourism is the beaches. And so when all of our leisure that happens out on our beaches, we've been undergoing quite a bit of a change construction wise to make those more accessible over the years. And I guess I'd say, thank goodness there's some more money, because those kinds of things are very expensive and people need them. And so the Coquina Beach projects that have been happening. Also the boat ramps. We have been short on boat ramps for so long. With all these new people coming in, we have an opportunity here in this budget for some new boat ramp assistance for a couple of areas. So that's the good news. And then there's lots of maintenance. I know you guys remember one of the things I always was worried about as a county administrator was, while building new things, especially in the category of parks, is how are we going to operate them and how are we going to maintain them after they're built? You know, everybody wants that shiny new thing, and we know people deserve to have access to those things. But then what happens? We get those, we have to have staff for those, we have to repair things. And so it's really important in the budget for us to see where those kinds of things are addressed, where we make sure we have that farther out vision of how we're going to maintain the quality of our parks and our leisure services.
So the exciting thing about that is, you know, obviously the growth is with the increase, bring a little bit of dollars, but you know, hey, we live in a time, more money, more problems. And the reality, that's an unfortunate reality. With the growth, you're going to bring in more people that's going to have boats. So you're going to obviously need to expand the boat ramps. You know, our beaches are often overcrowded. You know, our preserves are being challenged now with a lot of the people frequent with them visiting, as far as Emerson Point, which is a favorite of mine, and definitely Robbins Preserve. I love going out there and trying to, you know, catch the sunset and make sure I get out before the bugs starting to run me out. But that's another conversation. When we talk about when we talk about, you know, the Parks and Rec specifically, I have to think about the things that have taken place, difference at Clemens Park and East Bradenton, as well as the changes when you look at the Eddie Shannon Park with the aquatic center and the relocation of the basketball courts. The exciting thing about that is that that's given us an opportunity to see, you know, countless amount of our residents enjoying it. However, when we start talking about the budget, I am led to believe that there are more parks coming and that there are more aquatic centers coming, but we have to keep out in front. You know, new buildings, new dollars. You know, more dollars, more problems. So I guess our listeners need to be mindful of the challenges that we are about to encounter. One note that I want to leave you with is we have actually, you know, put the Lincoln Aquatic Center there, the Aquatic Center at Eddie Shannon Park, but we have challenges with lifeguards. We have challenges with lifeguards. So I'll just pass that and let you all speak on it, but it's definitely something for us to kind of keep in the back of our mind.
Yeah, for sure. Lifeguards are a problem throughout the country, is what I keep reading. And I don't know if you guys saw the article in the paper recently, but historically, we have the most boat registrations we've ever had right now in this area. So we've been short for boat ramps, I don't know for how many years, but I think we're getting shorter rather than catching up. It's a big challenge. The pools, you mentioned Clemens Pool, and I'm so glad you did, Reggie, because in this budget, I saw that there is some money dedicated to some improvements there. And we are short on pools. When I was a county commissioner, I would hear from all the swim teams and from just the public who wanted to recreate and cool off in the pools that they couldn't get there. There was, you know, there were not enough pools or enough pool time to accommodate everyone. So we've got 2 new aquatic centers in this budget, one in Parrish, one out at Premier. I think that's fantastic and everybody should be really excited about it. But just like Sherry said, and this is what Sherry taught me when she was a county administrator, because she was constantly hammering on, yes, that's a great idea to do this thing that you want, but you know, we've got to be able to operate it, because the worst thing to do would be able to build it, And then we have to shut it down 4 days a week because we don't have enough staff, because we can't afford the maintenance on the pool deck, or whatever the case is. So yeah, we always have to think about those capital improvements in tandem with operating. And I'm going to give one big congratulations to the staff on the John Marble Park, because I advocated for that for years. It is up and going. It's funded. It's now in your former district, Reggie. It used to be in District 4. But there's going to be a splash pad, a new gymnasium, all things that were so desperately needed in this part of the county, which before you would have to go to GT Bray to get some of these services.
So yeah, it started out in your district, and when you passed the baton to me, I was excited about what was going on at John Marble. I actually advocated for 2 full-length basketball courts, and hopefully that they would consider hardening it. But that was another conversation, because again, Sherry, that's dollars, that's money. But I like where John Marble is headed, and I'm excited about that. And I think that particular community out there, that's a need, just like the need for North River at the Eddie Shannon at the Eddie Shannon complex, as well as the Clemens complex. All of them have different needs and serve different types of our population. So it should be a great asset once it's finished.
Yeah, I think as I listen to you guys from a budget perspective, I'd say, wow, if you could bring commissioners and staff back from 10 or 15 or even 20 years ago and sit them down and say, you have a 17.5% growth in the tax base, what would you be able to do? All those things, build, more pools, more trails, more of this and that. So, I mean, I think it's cool that while there's that new influx of dollars, a lot of people probably think, why didn't we do those things 10 years ago? Why weren't we doing those things? Well, that ability to do that did not really become present until there's a lot of influx of money. And I know in one of our episodes, we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan funds and that influx of money, that huge amount of money that came in that across the country, but specifically to Manatee County and what that means about impacts to the budget and caution about building things or the right things so that they can be managed and operated. One of the areas though that I'm not quite following and understanding the path is more in the preserves and in the areas that are the environmentally sensitive lands. And I don't know if one of you has more of a better perspective on that than me, but I'm really watching to see where that goes, because in that long vision of what Manatee County looks like and is all about, for me, they're there. I want to see those places that are protected and that continue the character of what Manatee County is all about. So I don't know if either one of you want to talk a little bit about that.
Land is being gobbled up so quickly through development, and we've talked about the population surges here. And the citizens, don't forget, passed a referendum to tax ourselves to buy these lands, as part of what was it called? The Florida Trust. I don't remember the name of the organization that helped us, but it's so important that we do that, because once these lands are developed, you lose that opportunity. And I would be remiss if I didn't say and express some disappointment that the board did not go forward and choose to purchase the Wisnet property out east. I think it's a mistake. I'm sorry that we didn't do that, mostly because we're going to have so much development occurring out there. We just had, I think, like 8,000 homes approved in that area. And when we were commissioners, we had like another 10. And we could have had like what is like GT Bray today out there in that area so that everybody could enjoy it by purchasing the Wisnet property. The board did not choose to do that. I feel it's a shame. It was like $10,000 an acre. By the way, do you guys know what we're paying per acre now? It's like $90,000, $100,000 an acre when we're talking about getting land for right of way and other things that we need. So I just feel like that was a miss, and I'm
Could
sorry
they
that
still
we
do
ended
it
up
though?
there.
I mean, couldn't they still do it after they really sit down and take a look at North County? I know I'm a North County resident, and I'd want to say, this year maybe that wasn't the way to go, but as you start to see things out there growing, is there an opportunity to stay engaged with some of these landowners out here?
And see, that's where I was on that, and where I am with a lot of things. It's all about timing, and there's a lot of things that I thought about when you made that. As far as it being a miss, and leadership did not make a decision to move on that. I find myself thinking I definitely don't agree with a lot of stuff that I'm told to do, by my parents. And because we look at things from different perspectives. And I appreciate the different perspectives, but the reality of it, what's the timing of it? And now, my point is, I'm not as in depth as far as the whole process and that procedure on why it was a hit or a miss, but I still look at all things as far as, the biblical term, all things work together, right? For those who love the Lord and those who called according to his purpose. A lot of that is timing in my perspective. So I'm not sure if it's over. I would hope it's not, because Misty, what you just said is an awesome opportunity as far as taking a modern GT Bray and putting it out east to match the growth and the need, so those individuals out there can have the same options that we have out west, or when we have at the Eddie Shannon Aquatic Center. So I do think, from the whole sports approach, it's not over until it's over, shall I say.
Mhm.
It's a good point, right? And I'm the optimist. I'm always hopeful that, there's going to be another opportunity around the corner. Here's the bad thing in this case. I don't think the Wisnets are going to hang around, and that land is probably going to be sold off. And I don't know of another piece of land of that size that is available to do something like that. That's why I think it's a missed opportunity. But, I don't want to dwell on that so much. I do want to also say it looks like there's a great opportunity for the county to acquire the Mixon's land. They're moving on, going to retire. And what I love about that purchase is it's in an area that's going to help our underserved population, which has not had a lot of those opportunities. And they're talking about doing a stormwater park there. So I love when we can leverage our tax dollars to, collect stormwater and treat it and help our water quality at the same time as providing, lands that are open space and available to the public.
Yeah, I look at it when you talk about it like that. I think that's a great point about that particular location. But anywhere where there's these decisions to make, this preservation, and where there's a possibility of sharing property, it's really the way to go. But I also think about economic development. Well, if you're going to have a GT Bray somewhere out north here in the north part of the county, you've got tournaments happening, you've got hotel rooms needed, you've got restaurants that are needed, and everyone in these areas where these things don't lie now wonder why you can't have it. And we know that's an infrastructure problem, right? So we know that infrastructure has to be there. So I always like to think that there's a connection between all these decisions. And I'm going to go back to say, I want to see the analysis of what the projection is of each one of these projects, what this one can bring, what it does for that area. And if that's happening, I think those are the positives, especially for what the board has to look at. I mean, I would give it to anybody, any commissioner, when you guys were there, and any of the ones that are there now. It's like, this is not an easy job to be trying to project what's going to happen in the future and make decisions and still try to handle things that are existing. Because like even in the parks budgets, the good thing is I see they're doing upgrades to almost all the parks with shade structures, and they're doing all kinds of things to try to make them, the ones that are really used the most, more protected and new netting and all kinds of things. So that kind of stuff is really important too. And probably a lot of people won't even notice. They won't even notice that stuff, but that does have a great impact.
So what I did is took my glasses off because my vision, and I can't see as well. But when I put them back on, I go from a blurred vision to seeing a little bit better. Which the bottom line is, my focus lens has changed. That's the reality, because I have my glasses on now. I can focus. I can see a little bit clearly. And I think what all of us are saying is maybe leadership should consider changing their focus lens, and that analysis and looking for that data, and to assure we clear on those projections and the needs in those particular categories and what we were discussing. Will we all get it all right? No, we won't. We won't get it all right. Are we going to do our best effort at the end of the day? I know as a commissioner I did. I know as a commissioner I did, and I trust that any leader anywhere that's performing at any leadership capacity would do the same. I want to talk a little bit about the Eddie Shannon Park, if that's okay. I'll pass it to Misty. You can pass it back, but I would love to kind of talk about some of the highlights in that.
Oh, okay. You don't want to do it now?
Well, I know you had a point. That's what I'll wait till you finish.
Oh, no, I really don't. Other than to say, I wish we had that crystal ball that we could know what the future is going to hold for all of us. And you're right. It's a tough job, Sherry. Being a county administrator or a county commissioner is a very tough job with a lot of responsibility. And as long as you're listening to your constituents and doing the very best job you can with the backup studies, data, and analysis, then that's all that anyone expects, I think, right? I would like to see more of that. How do we, if we're making these decisions, how did we get there?
Yeah.
So sometimes that's the unfortunate thing. We really don't know how we're getting there with some of these the decisions that are being made. But I know where we are at the Eddie Shannon Park, and I know how we got there. It was a great collaboration and support leadership when Sherry was the county administrator. Former commissioners, thank you, Mr. Actually supported the move for the aquatic center. But let's talk about the new pool, which has impacted our community and giving youth an opportunity to receive free swimming lessons. Let's talk about the scoreboard and that's serving not just football but also soccer. But one of the things that should be in the CIP, and I did see it, that's coming up, is that they're getting ready to put a press box where the football field is, and that's been passed and that's in budget for what I understand. But a connection bridge that connects the individuals that live in what we call Newtown. You all know as Sylvan Oaks. That live there, so they can come and walk across the bridge and give an opportunity for them to recreate and enjoy the amenities of the bridge. So my message is, how is the CIP, how is the Parks and Recs and Sports and Leisure actually hitting home? This is taxpayers' dollars, and it's giving them opportunity, North River, to have experiences that they would not normally have when you're talking about having aquatic center where you can learn how to swim, have an aquatic center that has, slides and have the ability to get your reps if you're on a swim team. So that's taxpayers' dollars at work. And I'm excited about that, but I want to give a clear example on how taxpayers' dollars hit home through the CIP, especially when we're talking about Parks and Recs.
Yeah, as you're talking about that, I was remembering, how we put together the Lincoln Park, the whole new project, the pool, and at the time that it was really being talked about, and again, when you go back 20 years talking about something like that, it's like taking $50 from over here and $50 from over here. We had to have partnerships, and so the city of Palmetto is an original partner in the Lincoln Pool project in the park there. But now that there's this influx of money, the county has the ability to do some things without, partnering, let's say, with others. So, when you see some of these new amenities that you're talking about, those might not have been easy to get before, but maybe now, now they are. And, I know that we're in the future, we're going to talk about the constitutional officers' budgets, because again, those are also a responsibility, as you guys know, of the county commission, to hear the sheriff, the property appraiser, tax collector, clerk, all of the supervisor of elections, all of the constitutionals come in and present their budget, and they have needs as well. And I would like to think, hopefully people know, when the community's growing by 10,000 people in a year, there's more court needed, there's more all kinds of positions that are allowed. The clerk needs positions to handle all of those fees because they're the comptroller. You've got all kinds of impacts to the constitutionals, not just the sheriff. So those are things we're going to talk about and look at as they talk about those next week in front of the board. And the one other thing I wanted to mention is there are 150 funds in the county, especially where you guys learned this. There's money in each one of those funds, and some of those are restricted funds. You want to build a new pool out in Premier. Sometimes you can't just do that with certain kinds of money. And for our citizens that are watching, it's really important to understand that that's a balance. And that's another job of your financial management office, county administrator, and the commissioners, is to make sure that the money that's in a particular fund is being spent for the things that it's supposed to be. And so it's a real balancing act. So when we look at even bringing on new boat ramps, got to be careful where that comes from. So with this unprecedented growth in this budget, you can see there's some general fund money that's going to allow some of these things, to continue to move forward.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's so difficult, government financing compared to the private sector. And regarding boat ramps, just boat ramps, for example, and you can think about any other types of examples, but sometime maybe we could have a discussion on user fees. Should we be taking dollars from the general fund to build boat ramps, for example, which everybody pays into? I don't have a boat, but I'm paying into that boat ramp. Or should we be charging, $5 a day parking, or, use of the boat ramp a fee, so the people who use it and benefit from it are paying for it? I don't know. That's a philosophical question, but maybe one we can tackle.
Yeah. Another point, and that's eventually going to come up, especially with some of the developments that are taking place out by the beaches. I'm sure that's going to be, a conversation as far as whether we have, basically it's access fees, and that becomes not only just a philosophical approach, but it becomes a political approach, as well. But I want to, take a step or two back. And you talked about the reserves and the restricted and the unrestricted. I can't recall all the different accounts and everything. I don't think nobody can. Sherry may be able to. But the point of informing, the community is the difference between restricted and unrestricted, not just as far as what the definition is, but it's always so common when people come down and they start talking about reserves and they think about, we have all this money. And I remember, Jan Brewer, Madam Money, she used to get up every time and explain to this one guy, I'm not going to call his name, hey, that's not that's not really the way it is, and that's because it's restricted, and a lot of that's allocated and it's already tied up and committed to some projects that's tied up in the CIP that's coming down the pipe. And I think we should attempt to kind of bring that to light a little bit differently. So when we're talking about restricted and unrestricted, and you see all this money there, it's a reason why, yeah, some of it's there, but it's also a reason why it doesn't look as good as it seems as well.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a county administrator, a former or the county administrator approach. Tell us what you think about that, Sherry.
Well, I'm actually glad you mentioned how citizens come down, because honestly, while it's frustrating sometimes because in previous, I know I couldn't say now, just, I don't have that insider viewpoint, but you're doing this work, you're bringing this information to the board, and you've got a basis for why it's there. But if you don't know how to tell the public, you have folks that want to come in, and that's a good thing. Come in, come talk to the board, ask questions. They can answer your questions. It's the kind of things that are important. And we're going to be spending a lot of time this summer going over the budget. We are skimming the surface right now. We try to keep these sessions short so that you have time to listen to them in your car, or when you've got 20 minutes somewhere, because we just want you to know what are the things that you really might want to start looking at. But to do a deeper dive, that's why we're going to spend some more time on these things, to know about these different 150 different funds and what those, we're not going to be going through each meeting, but there are citizens out there that really do look at those things. And I think, obviously, and you guys know as commissioners, the most popular topic is going to be, what is the millage rate going to be? Now, that's going to be a topic. We're not going to talk about it until after the tax roll gets certified, until the board comes back at the end of July, because there's no reason for us to speculate what the group will do. But when they do, what happens is, whatever does happen, that's why there is a reserve right now. That's why there's cash reserve. That's why there's the reserves in the different budget categories. Is so, should there be a decision made by the board to reduce the millage rate, then the financial management department has to go back and recalibrate all of these requests that are in here right now. So we really appreciate everybody sticking with us. It's one of those things where, now that we have our new website, you can send us messages about things you might want us to do a deeper dive on. We can add some extra programming. But to close out for me, I just want to ask both of you, how do you feel about that? I mean, you've gone through this budgeting process a number of times, and what are some of the things that you might want to close out with today on what you want people to be looking for?
You want me to go first, Reg?
Go ahead.
Okay, so really good, Sherry. Thanks for framing that all up. What I want people to take away is, I know it's a dry topic and maybe even boring, but it's so impactful. It's your money. It doesn't belong to anybody except our community. And so if our community showed up and they talked about what was important to them, to their elected officials, they would listen, because you are their constituents. So I would encourage people to be involved. I would encourage people to try and understand that when we have reserves in the millions and tens of millions and $100 million, it's because we're saving up to build a road that costs 80 million, and the clerk won't let us build it until we got all the money in the bank. Thank goodness, right? You got to save your money before you spend it. So there's a lot to understand, but that's my takeaway. I want people involved.
Great.
Yeah, so I sum it up with, like, hey there, we care. And it's twofold. And I want the community to know that we care, but we want the community to get engaged and inform their commissioners that you care about the budget process, that you care about how the dollars hit home, and get informed and engaged to the standpoint where you're willing to educate someone, but more importantly, participate in the process. I think we don't have enough of that. We have small groups that are consistently engaged, and I think we need more turnout within that, so voices can be heard, so changes can be made, and a consensus can be there. I think hearing from a few is good and is nice, but hearing from the majority is more important. And I would close out with saying, hey there, we care. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. I know I always try to give examples when we're talking about purchasing something or building something with the county. So if you're buying if you're getting your let's say you're getting your tax return, $1,200. I'm waiting for it. I'm going to buy a brand new big screen TV. I buy that big screen TV. I spent all the $1,200 on that. I didn't save anything for what if it breaks down? What if I need, if something else in the house breaks down? So I know that when we're looking at the county budget, it's just like running a household. You got to have a real mindful eye on what you currently need, what might happen that you don't know of, and what then is left over. So I know that's what we're going to do for the rest of the summer. We're going to talk more about these things. Thanks for this great conversation. Hopefully we've touched a few people in their thoughts about learning more about the budget and coming down and asking more questions. We'd like you to watch our video. We'd like you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And thanks for all of you that already have. It makes us want to keep going. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter as well. And we mentioned our new website at our last session, and we've gotten some responses from people. So keep those emails coming about things you'd like to see us talk about in the future. And we look forward to talking more about the budget, I think, right? Do we look forward to talking about in the future upcoming episodes? So thanks everybody for coming.